Every Invincible variant's life has been horrible, but one of them has a backstory that is so tragic it almost ruins the entire Invincible universe. Today, I'll be going over every major Invincible variant's backstory and ranking them, starting with one nobody expects.
We didn't all make the same deal, man. I came here to find Mom and bring her back with me.
A heartbreaking quote from this variant of Mark known as Full Mask Mark lost his Debbie at some point in his life, which is the main motive to help Angstrom Levy destroy the Prime World. This is most likely the variant with the closest origin to the main Mark. It's unknown when or how Debbie died in his universe, but there are several secret hints hidden throughout the story. As we know, Debbie started drinking more after the Season 1 finale due to what happened in Chicago with Omni-Man and Invincible. At one point, we see Debbie standing on a bridge, debating if she should take that jump. In our universe, she didn't, but maybe in Full Mask Mark's universe, she jumped. That would leave Mark without both parents. He would have nobody around to guide him, and this would be much more important than you think, especially after we see how Debbie plays a massive part in his character. Without her, he would be filled with grief and pain, causing him not to care about saving others. This is also backed up by when the 8 surviving Marks watched over the destroyed city they were in. Masked Mark was looking at a bridge, which could be the same bridge his Debbie jumped off. If this is true, it would explain why he targeted the bridge and what drove him to villain-like nature. But what the hell was this Mark thinking? That Debbie would just go along with him, leaving behind Oliver and her own Mark? His way of thinking is flawed and clouded by grief, and this is why he might be the most broken variant of them all. But the next variant would have a much darker backstory.
I wouldn't even keep you as a slave in my empire!
Has become one of Invincible's biggest memes. It comes from the Stripe Invincible variant who actually battled and killed a hero by the name of British Knight. But not before he dropped his iconic line that showed he's some kind of emperor in his world. Whether he's the Viltrumite Emperor or just rules his Earth is unclear, but he has the Viltrum logo on his costume, so we're leaning more towards the Viltrum Emperor. For his backstory, the fact that he has slaves in his empire is the biggest thing we have to base his backstory off. He was raised in a way where he looked down upon those weaker than him, leading me to believe that he was raised by Nolan and his Debbie either died, or Nolan took him away and raised him on his own. Personally, I'm leaning more towards the Debbie dying part, as she wouldn't let Nolan take Mark away without a fight. The way this would have to play out is Mark getting his powers earlier than usual, meaning more quality time with Nolan rather than him always being with Debbie, while Nolan was off being a hero. While teaching Mark how to be a hero, Nolan also manipulated Mark to believe that those beneath him aren't worth saving, just like when he told Mark not to help Titan because he's a low-life criminal. But instead of just criminals, he tells Mark to not save anyone who's weak, just like a Viltrumite would. This would lead Mark to stop caring about the civilians, including Debbie, William, and Amber, even going as far to enslave them and potentially killing Debbie, as she was his last step to become a full-blown villain and a soldier of Viltrum.
After a year in a Viltrumite prison, I could use a warm-up.
Is a line that makes fans guess as to what this variant did to be thrown into prison. And we know it was Nolan who did so, as the variant swears he'll treat his father worse than the heroes of Earth, pointing in a direction that he and his father are on bad terms at that point in the story. From the characters we see arrested in our primary universe Viltrumite prison, Alan and Nolan mainly, we can kind of get an idea of why he was put there. Nolan was arrested and sentenced to execution for abandoning his mission on Earth, but I don't think that's the reason Mark was sent to prison. I think it's much deeper than that. Looking at how scarred he is, and the fact that it's permanent, means that either something overpowered his smart atoms enough to negate his healing factor, or he somehow got the Scourge virus and was attacked, similar to how Conquest got his scarred eye and missing right forearm.
Swearing doesn't make you cool.
A one-shot line from another variant by the name of Omni-Mark that also went viral once the Invincible War finally aired. This variant of Mark says he's always hated Eve back in his home dimension, which is a very interesting way of looking at things, seeing as most, if not all of the other Marks had a thing going on with her, but besides his relationship issues, he seems to be heavily inspired by Nolan and agrees with the Viltrum Empire, or he just idolizes Nolan in general to the point it affects what his costume design came to be. I believe that this variant is the Invincible version of a nonchalant dreadhead, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a man who doesn't really care about anything or what someone has going on, which I think fits Omni-Mark perfectly. He didn't seem to care how strong the primary Mark was, or the fact that Shiesty Mark died. While they were together, as he never mentions it, or seems to care, which is caused by his upbringing by Nolan to not care for the life of inferior species. I believe that Nolan, however, was killed by the same experimental bombs created by the GDA, which took out most of Europe, just like in the alternate universe with Donald and Cecil being women. The colors and the added cape as well, and while in the comics he kills Omni-Man and pays homage to him by designing his costume after his, while in the show, it's another variant who kills their father, which brings us right into the next variant.
I murdered my own father. You really think you're gonna take me down?
Coming from the most vile variant known as Sinister Mark, or Cape Invincible, this variant of Mark is probably the most evil of them all. It is unknown when he killed his father, but I have a couple ideas and we'll begin with this first. Now, he says that he murdered Nolan. He didn't say that he defeated or killed, but outright murdered, which leads me to believe that the way he was able to kill Omni-Man is due to the fact that he was either off guard, exhausted, or already near death, and the only time we see him near death is after the fight against the Guardians, so Sinister Mark had to be there while that happened. The way I see this playing out is that Mark got his powers earlier than our Mark did, which caused Nolan to personally look after him, taking him on missions, rather than Debbie being the one who mainly raised Mark, leading him to develop the same ideals that Nolan has. As Sinister Mark training goes on, he starts to develop a sadistic attitude, taking pride in hurting and killing others, much like Oliver did when he killed the Maulers. But Mark wouldn't just stop at one or two villains. He would continue to kill, and it'll be justified by Nolan, so he would see no wrong in it, building his sadistic nature more and more. Now, going back to the fight with the Guardians, what if Nolan decided to kill them? He told Mark everything about Viltrum and persuaded him to help. The way they go about it will be the same, how Nolan contacted each member and then launched an ambush. But here's where I think things went wrong, for Nolan at least. Mark watched as Nolan fought the Guardians single-handedly, and then he made his move to finish the exhausted and beaten Nolan off, and then leaving with no evidence of him being there left, leaving the people of his world wondering what happened to the most powerful heroes on Earth. As to why he killed Nolan, there's also multiple reasons, with the first being him wanting to do whatever he wanted and Nolan being there to stop him from doing it, or he wanted to keep the planet for himself and not Viltrum. With the death of the Guardians and Omni-Man, the planet didn't have much of a defense against him. I think he took over as the most called upon hero and started killing the villains, which was looked down upon by most of the heroes, if not all of them, leading to a war between him and the new Guardians, as well as other heroes on the planet, which he wins and eventually takes over the world without destroying it, picking up more on his sadistic side as the killing continued. The second way I see him killing Nolan is during the fight with Hail Mary. The way this would be set up is the same way in our dimension, but instead of helping Nolan, Mark attacks him alongside the Kaiju and the Immortal as well, and this is when he murders Nolan and goes on to take out Hail Mary, just like our Mark did by electrocution, and he almost likely killed the Immortal afterwards. With no one to really oppose him, he began taking over the planet city by city before getting more powerful and wiping out entire countries.
I miss William.
With this quote, it was speculated by fans that this variant was involved with the William of his universe romantically, and it turns out to be true. No Mask Mark to me is probably the second most heartbreaking variant, as it's very likely that William's death is what pushed him to the edge. Now, there's three ways I think this could have happened, with the first being with D.A. Sinclair, as you all know, turns humans into cyborgs, and my theory about that is, instead of going after Rick, he went after William as Rick, and Amber wouldn't be with Mark and William as Sinclair went on his rant, and William, being the one who spoke up, was targeted by Sinclair just because he was pissed off. And while Mark looked for William after he was kidnapped, he was forced to kill him not knowing he was a Reaniman. The second theory I have is that William was killed by the first Reaniman that attacked the college. As we know, Mark was able to hold it off long enough to save everyone, but what if in this universe it kills William before going down? My theory is that Mark wasn't strong enough to hold it off, and the Reaniman ends up killing a few people, with one of them being William, leading Mark on a path of destruction. But the question is, where is Omni-Man in all of this? He would still be trying to conquer the planet at this point in the story, so William's death would likely be later into the story. During season 2, Anissa shows up and threatens to kill Amber. What if William was the one threatened instead of Amber? Anissa shows up at their date and places her hands around William's neck. Just like she did to Amber, she tells Mark that she wants to talk, but will kill everyone around them, beginning with Amber if he refuses, which I think this variant does, being his cocky and arrogant self, resulting in the death of William, leading him down the path of villainy, but with a strong hate against Viltrum. I'm definitely leaning more towards the first or second theory, however the third is quite interesting.
Oh, someone misses their mommy.
Another iconic meme from the Invincible War delivered to us by Mohawk Mark, a variant of Mark who killed his Debbie for unknown reasons. But what we do know is that he's the emperor of his Viltrum Empire, which he rules with an iron fist on Earth, with the Pentagon being their stronghold. From this fact, we can guess that he was raised to look down upon those weaker than him, which is further backed up by him saying he was going to kill the variants of Mark that died during the war. From this fact, we can speculate that it was mainly Nolan who raised him, and as to what happened to his Nolan, we do not know, as he is never mentioned. Besides the Viltrum Empire and killing Debbie, he stands out as he is being a bit sarcastic, asking Mark if he likes what he's done with the place, talking about the destruction of Peyton Penitentiary, while the others are more serious, save for No Goggles, who's an adrenaline junkie. I have a few reasons for how he was able to take over the Earth for Viltrum, as well as an idea for why and when he killed Debbie, starting this theory off with the fact that Throg is no longer the Grand Regent and serves as a rebel leader, mentioned by Conquest, who serves under Mohawk Mark. If you do not already know, in the comics Nolan is the son of the former Emperor of Viltrum by the name of Argal. It was Argal's death that set up Throg being bred to become the most powerful Viltrumite ever, and eventually he became the Grand Regent. After Mark was discovered to be Argal's grandson, that could only mean that Nolan is the former Emperor's son. Throg attacks Nolan and tells him of his bloodline, which is overheard by a small handful of the Viltrumites, so they attack Throg and he is eventually banished. Now that you know why Throg is no longer a part of the Viltrum Empire, we can speculate that the way that goes is the same in that universe, but that would be far too early to happen, so here's how I think it happened. Starting with Nolan, let's say he tells Mark about Viltrum and Mark joins him, and the first test he gives his son is to kill his mother Debbie. Mark does it without hesitation, showing complete loyalty to his father and the Viltrum Empire. The duo goes on to take over the planet, and later the Viltrum Empire shows up and takes the planet under their control, with Nolan and Mark being the commanders of Earth. As time goes on, Thaddeus and the Coalition of Planets launches an attack on Viltrum accompanied by Alan, Battle Beast, and Tech Jacket, which leads to the destruction of Viltrum, once again leaving the Viltrumites with no home, and since Earth is already conquered, that's where they set their sights. Thaddeus is once again killed by Throg. Alan is appointed leader of the Coalition and discovers a second batch of the Scourge virus. He attempts to release the E-virus on Earth, and instead of Mark getting hit with it, it's Nolan who does, although he doesn't survive. But before he dies, it's discovered that he is the son, or Argal, and the heir to the throne, and since Debbie is dead and Mark is on his side, he wouldn't have changed as much as he did in the primary world. The Doctor alerts all of the Viltrumites about this. Rather than just Throg has an outburst about why he should be leader, but the Viltrumites don't care and decides to follow Mark as he is next in line to rule now that Nolan is dead. So Throg, being the way he is, sets off to start his own empire. Now that most of his empire is on Earth, they take the GDA as their stronghold with Mohawk Mark as their emperor. Speaking of the Viltrum Empire, this next variant is a full-blown soldier of the Empire with the outfit and all.
I've killed you before, and I'll kill you again.
A line that was shocking to fans against a hero you all know by the name of Spawn. Spawn is a very popular and powerful Image Cosmics character. Image Comics is the same industry that published the Invincible series. But going back to the variant, he battled his own version of Spawn, an event went far as ending his life as far as the comics go. In the show, he battles a wolf hero by the name of Wolfman, who's exactly what he sounds like, a wolfman whom he killed in his reality, but fails to do so again in the main timeline. Now, for this variant backstory, I feel as if this version of Mark wasn't swayed to join the Empire by Nolan, but by General Craig. As we know, Nolan goes to Thraxa and has another kid with a lady from the planet by the name of Andressa. He fathers a child named Oliver, whom we have all come to know and love, but what if Oliver was killed? Not only him, but Andressa as well, while Nolan was taken to be executed. This would leave Mark devastated and full of guilt, feeling as if it's his fault that everyone is dead due to holding back and not fighting like a Viltrumite. Once Craig arrives, he tells Mark about how he is the new agent for Earth and now he has to take over the planet. Carrying all of this grief and heartbreak on his shoulders, he would eventually fall to villainy, killing and destroying to make himself feel better as he would drown in his misery, unreachable and lonely, taking up the Viltrumite outfit and becoming a full-fledged warrior of Viltrum.